Hello and welcome to Letters Home, a story of a World War II B-17 pilot from Lowell, Michigan in his own words. And he just so happens to be my grandpa. I'm your host, Annie Whitlock, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, my dad, Mitch McMahon, my aunt, Lori Summerfield, and Dale Croft from the Lowell Historical Museum.
In each episode of Letters Home, we're going to dive into letters written by my dad during his time in World War II that he sent to his parents, siblings, and friends back home in Lowell, Michigan. We'll be reading his own words and giving some context as to what was happening in the world and in Lowell at the time he wrote these.
In this episode, we discuss the Christmas presents that Dad received and the list of Lowell people who sent them. We'll also read a letter about Bruce's trip to Mexico, and we wrap up 1942.
That's right. We're at the end of the year now. We're up to December 1942. It's Christmas time. And as you can imagine, many people want to send Bruce some gifts. So he writes about a few of his presents in a letter from December 15th in his own words.
Today I received 3 packages. Kitty and Bert's sewing kit, and I needed one bad. Burns sent me a pencil light, wish I knew how much I used it. Dad's diary is swell, and I'm going to keep one from now on. Thanks so much. I received a nice card from Lori and Shep today. I'm so glad we have them as neighbors. Doc always keeping check on you as he does makes me feel better, especially because Mother, Dad and I used to have to chase you to the doctor. I'll bet Terry takes care of a lot of otherwise dull moments, Mother. Gosh, I bet he's grown a lot since I saw him last.
Oh. Okay, we're going to need to break down who these people are. We're going to kick things off right off the bat. And since it's our last episode of 1942, and we started this podcast with trying to figure out who Kitty was, I think we can talk about who she was, or maybe who we thought she was. I don't know. At the beginning of the podcast, Bruce wrote a letter to Kitty on his first day or second day in the Army, and we didn't know who that was. So we've done some investigating, and thanks to Annette Lally, who has supplied us with a lot of background information for this podcast, we discovered that Jack Lally, Bruce's cousin, had an aunt on the other side of his family named Kitty. If that sounds very convoluted, it's because it is. We tried to figure out how that worked. So Jack's daughter Annette confirmed that despite them only being related by marriage, they were all really close together. So Kitty was a family friend, I suppose, and supposedly she never married herself, and she was a teacher in Grand Rapids and possibly may have even helped out at Lowell Light Power, as we have learned from other letters, but we're not sure. So, but then we got more confused because in this letter, Bruce refers to Kitty and Bert, and Kitty is spelled with an I-E in this letter, and before it was spelled with a Y, like all the other times. So did Grandpa just misspell the name? Is it Kitty with an I-E, Kitty with an I? And we thought Kitty never married, so who was Bert? A boyfriend? A friend? So we thought we knew who Kitty was, but we may not. I don't know.
Maybe we'll have to check with Annette. Maybe we'll have to get her on.
We will have to get her on. But maybe less confusing to all of you, who are Lori, Shep, and Terry that were mentioned in this letter. Not Aunt Lori, different Lori.
And that's Lori Shepard, and Shep is Dr. Shepard. I don't know his first name. He was just Dr. Shepard, or Doc. And Terry was their oldest son. And they had another son, Rick. But it's funny because Terry obviously is a little kid in this one. I barely remember him because he's quite a bit older than I am. But
well, he takes care of a lot of otherwise dull moments, as they said. So he must be like a
toddler,
toddler, somebody fun.
I have a vague memory, and I could be totally wrong about this.
He's got to be 3 or 4.
But I remember Doc Shepard. No, that's all right. I think he delivered some of the children, some of our family. I thought.
Oh, really?
I do, and I don't know why I have that memory. I don't know. So
you remember seeing him when you came out?
Good Lord.
You recognize him?
No, I just remember that being a conversation.
No, I think you're right too.
I think
we better check on that.
Yeah, we should check on that.
Boy, I hadn't thought about that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of.
And I didn't realize Terry must have been that much older than Marty.
Yeah.
A good 3 or 4 years older than Marty.
Yeah.
I kind of always equated them because they were both up and out of the house before.
Yeah.
That I
okay. All right. Well, and Shepherd Drive is named for him.
Yes.
Correct.
I also
Dr.
learned this
Shepherd.
too, which is now well, it's now Shepherd Drive. It used to be Reservoir Hill.
Correct.
So, and so now I want to also point out in this letter too, he mentions a diary that Frank gave Bruce. We actually, Dale had scanned it into, which we think is the same diary, and put it into the primary source PDF that accompanies this podcast, and that's on the Lowell Historical Museum website, of course. It looks like Bruce started to write in it, but maybe he got too busy with letters to finish it. I don't know. Only looks like maybe a page or two is filled out, and he's got like December, right around this time, he's got a couple of days, couple sentences written for each one, and then that's it. Or at least that's all we had. Anyway, I don't know.
That sounds about right. I mean, look at all the volume of letters he's writing.
Yeah, how would he have time to write in a journal, too?
Yeah.
Would have been cool, though. Can have a whole other podcast. All right, on December 19th, he received some pictures from his family, in his own words.
The pictures you sent of home are really super. They're by far the best pictures that were ever taken of our home. The one where the bushes frame the picture from over by the pump switch pole is really photographic art. Suppose Barney took them, huh? I showed them to all the Easterners in my barracks, and they all agreed that the sight of snow made them homesick. I think I'll keep them for a while, if you don't mind, at least during the holidays. Be sure to take a few pictures of the Christmas festivities and send them to me.
Aw. He wants pictures of the snow to show his buddies in Arizona in the desert. Who is Barney? Is this another family mystery that I've never heard of this person's name?
Interesting. I don't know.
I don't know where the pump switch pole is. I was trying to picture that.
I'm not sure either.
Okay.
Well, Aunt Lori, when you go home
Sure, the
tonight,
Ritzmas would
walk
know.
up there on
Well,
top of the hill.
This would have been the Ritzman's house.
Right. It would have been the Ritzman's
Reservoir
house.
Hill.
Yeah.
Not Lori's house at this time.
Okay, all right. Well, we don't know who Barney is still.
No, I know.
This doesn't ring a bell? No one named Barney in your family?
Barnes.
Nope.
Okay, all right. Oh, man, we're just full of questions and not a whole lot of answers today. But we'll add it to the mystery list. So he continues to get some gifts after Christmas, as the mail is a little delayed with packages during this time. So he's writing everybody to make sure that everyone knows that he got them. He lists them out in a letter from December 26th in his own words.
Saturday night. Dear Mother and Dad, I received your letter written on last Tuesday. You don't know how glad I am to have that you have a tree and are keeping the home fires burning by trying to have a happy Christmas. It is certainly the thing I wanted. Wouldn't you know that? Before I go any further, here's a list of Christmas packages I received. Helen and Burns, Lori's, Betty's, Doty's, Jerry Devine's, Paul Rickards. I opened Helen and Burns yesterday, and it was swell. Tell them how much I enjoyed the divinity and the fruitcake. Pig that I am, I ate them both all by myself. So far, I haven't received Marion's nor Mrs. Linton's, but they'll get here. There's an awful lot of mail coming into a camp like this, especially during this time. You speak of writing noble thoughts, etc. Don't you know, Mother, that I know you and we know each other well enough not to have to say these things. I realize the things that you and Dad think. I bet I can even tell you each of your multitude of worries for me. First, you give me the best of your years, and how do I reciprocate? By causing you more worry. Well, make sure of this. I'll be back home after this is all over with, if I have to crawl back on my hands and knees. And the reason will be to live again with you. For that reason, you must keep well so that you can be there to welcome me. Never forget this. That's my big worry. Christmas, I went to Bisbee, ate dinner at some swell people's home. I went to midnight mass in a beautiful church. My prayers and communion were for you. Got to hit the hay now. Dad, I'll write a letter to the office. The one they sent was swell. Thanks for the money and the money order. Good night. God bless you. Lovingly, Son J. Bruce.
Aw. We obviously know Helen and Bern, and Marion. Those are his siblings and siblings-in-law. Betty is his niece. Mrs. Linton is actually Veda's mother, I discovered.
Very good.
Yes, wow. I know. I'm pretty sure. Lori must be the Lori Shepherd that we just talked about. I'm pretty sure Dodie maybe was Dodie Marshall, Eudora Marshall. I don't know. We mentioned her back in episode 4. I went back and looked and see. But I do not know who Jerry Devine or Paul Rickert or who they would be. Any of you have any guesses?
Those are kind of common townspeople names.
Rickard.
Rickard Electric, but maybe he was the one that started Rickard Electric way back.
Could be.
Could be. I don't know.
Well, we could search the ledger, I'm sure. But either way, they gave Grandpa some nice Christmas presents in the Army. So that'll be nice. He's getting all these things from all over. And another mention of divinity here. Helen's divinity and fruitcake.
Did you bring any back with you this time?
I did not.
It's
I'm
all gone?
sorry. It's all gone.
Okay.
And I didn't make any fruitcake this time. I'm sorry. We're just going to leave that to Helen, I guess. Just that could be her secret, her secret recipes. All right. Well, it's time for our segment where we talk about what was going on in the world and in Lowell when Bruce wrote these letters. So to kick this off, we're going to read a letter that Bruce wrote to his family after he visited Mexico. And let's just say he is not impressed with Mexico. In his own words.
Tuesday, dear Mother and Dad. Well, it was a good Christmas. Was it a good Christmas? Of course, it's only the 22nd here, but by the time this reaches you, it will be post-Christmas. We're due to get off Christmas Day, although we weren't sure for a while. But to make that possible, we fly on Sunday. So you can see they aren't wasting any time with this war. Just a minute ago, I returned from our weather station. I checked over a few teletype sequences, and also I noticed that it isn't snowing back home. Hope you have plenty of snow for Christmas, as that always seems to be one of the things I miss the most about Christmas around here. Last night, there was a USO show on the Post, and it was pretty good. We certainly have had plenty of outside entertainment. In the last 2 weeks I've been here, we've had Charlie McCarthy, Camel Caravan, and the show last night. Considering the fact that this is a small field, around 3,000 men, that's quite a lot of entertainment.
All right, so we'll pause this letter for a minute so we can talk about these USO entertainers. Dale, what can you tell us about Charlie McCarthy and Camel Caravan?
Was it? Let me just guess. Was that something sponsored by Camel Cigarettes? No.
My gosh, Mitch, you are amazing.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
Yeah. Camel
a little light
Caravan
bulb-
was a
bulb
musical
went-
variety radio program sponsored by Camel Cigarettes that aired on NBC Radio and CBS Radio from 1933 to 1954. Very vocalists, musicians, and comedy acts were heard during the 21 years the show was on the air, including such talents as Benny Goodman, Georgia Gibbs, Anita O'Day, and Vaughn Monroe. So those were available to soldiers anytime they wanted to hear them online, on radio, etc. Now, Charlie McCarthy, I think Mitch and I know who that is. Anyway.
No idea.
And
Has he got a...
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, you don't
the
remember him
famous.
Yeah.
And it's a Michigan connection because Edgar Bergen was born in Decatur, Michigan in 1903.
Oh, okay.
He developed a talent as a ventriloquist at a young age.
Okay.
When Bergen asked a local carpenter to create a dummy, the wisecracking Charlie McCarthy was born.
Oh, so the Charlie McCarthy is the dummy.
He's the dummy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. The duo
Okay.
the duo began their career as a talent show headliners, performing in Chicago when Bergen attended Northwestern University. Bergen eventually left Northwestern to concentrate on performing, but Charlie received an honorary degree from the school in 1938. He got a master's of innuendo and snappy comebacks.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Bergen and McCarthy made their radio debut on Rudy Valley's Roiled Gelatin Hour
What?
in
The names of these things. Okay.
1936 and were an instant success. In 1937, they were given their own show for Chase and Sanborn Coffee. Mm-hmm. Almost immediately, the Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy show became one of the radio's highest rated programs and distinction it enjoyed until it left the air in 1956, so 20 years they were on air. Ooh. During the show's 2 decades on the air, they appeared in 14 movies, performed with Frank Sinatra, Groucho Marx, Liberace, and the Muppets, just to name a few, and was the inspiration for his own daughter, Charlie's sister, Candace Bergen.
What?
Who was
Bergen, yeah.
Who became
Murphy Brown.
an award-winning actress.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Bergen added new characters to the show, including the slow-witted Mortimer Snurd.
Oh, I
remember him?
Mortimer. Yeah, sure.
And the man-hungry spinster, Effie Clinker. Today, Charlie McCarthy, Mortimer Snurd, and Effie Clinker are on permanent display at the Radio Hall of Fame.
Wow. Okay.
So
Royal-
a Michigan connection.
Oh,
Royal gelatin is a form of Jello that we still have. That's the Royal gelatin is the name of that, like Camel cigarettes.
Yeah.
Royal gelatin.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know you probably.
Well,
didn't.
I make gelatin as often as I smoke cigarettes, which is not at all. So I don't know either of those
I
things.
gotcha.
You know, a ventriloquist on a radio program doesn't seems like it'd lose a little bit in the
You would
translation.
think.
I don't-
But at least maybe at the base,
I forgot that's where he
it's the
started.
live show, right? So he's seeing him
Yes,
live, I
that's
would
true.
guess, right? At the USO show. So,
Oh, yeah.
So the Camel Caravan obviously came there and did the show live
I see.
from that place.
all right. Wow. I'm learning an awful lot.
And online, there are, if you go online and type in Camel Caravan, you can see hundreds of their shows that they did. Their online music that they played for the soldiers.
I will be doing
oh,
that.
All on film, huh?
There's just Camel Caravan, and you'll hit a treasure trove of music.
Well, you know, there's
comedy,
viewing for Andy.
you know.
There we go.
There you
Comedy.
go. Adding to my to watch list. All right. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we're going to keep going with this same letter that Bruce wrote in his own words.
Last week, I went into Mexico, and you've never seen such a place. It's impossible to imagine the conditions over there. You would think a border town would be like the American town on the other side. The opposite is true. The border towns are the baddest. Because of the conditions over there, we have to secure special passes, and only from 8 a.m. Sunday till 6 p.m. at night. The Mexican law states that a girl must be 20 years old before she can go into the business. Morals are unheard of, as you can see. It goes without saying that the Army doesn't let its soldiers run loose over there. Cadets and officers are the only ones who can get a pass to go in when they wish. I'd say the only reason for going across the border would be for the experience and for the conviction that this USA is plenty worth fighting for. It would make your heart ache to see the children the size of Gail in the streets begging for an American penny. They'll never have a chance. 3 of us fellows wanted to sample the notorious Mexican tequila when we went over. After we actually got inside one of their bars, houses, or you name it, none of us would drink out of the glasses, so I still got to taste it. Only wanted to see if it was as they say it was. When I get paid, December 31st, I'm going back over there and I'll get you a few souvenirs. In one bazaar, I saw a beautiful shrine of Saint Mary, and I'll get it. They also have some handmade bracelets made of pure silver. They're really beautiful and are so cheap you wouldn't believe it. Probably after this camp is older, they'll raise the prices with the increased business. Perhaps the only saving grace this country has is its climate. The air is clear and I'd imagine extremely healthy for pulmonary diseases. Well, my lungs are okay, so when my next 6 weeks are up, I won't care about staying longer.
Yeah, Bruce is not super impressed with his trip into Mexico. I'm guessing he'd never seen anything quite like a Mexican border town before, being from Lowell, and we already know how unimpressed he was with the camp in Douglas, with just its barren landscape. He writes a lot of things in this letter that we did not read that are actually pretty stereotypical and racist, so we're not going to read those out loud, but you will see them in the letters on the Lowell Historical Museum website, so be aware of that. But, not to excuse it, but to explain it, I just think there's quite a bit of culture shock going on here, which I think probably happens when you join the Army and you get to see all these places all over, right? Like,
Yep.
You're a little bit like, whoa, where am I? Where am I? But it did make me very curious about Mexico during World War II. Because, you can go across the border so easily. So were they fighting in the war? Dale, what can you tell us about Mexico in World War II?
I was surprised. I found a lot of interesting information here. They became an active belligerent in World War II in 1942 after Germany sank 2 of its tankers. That's what got them going.
Okay.
The Mexican Foreign Secretary urged all Latin American countries to support the Allies as well. Mexico played a significant role in World War II, contributing to the Allied war effort in many ways, including they supplied raw materials to the United States industry and closed its ports to German ships and submarines. It provided hundreds of thousands of temporary farm workers and railroad men to the U.S. through the Bracero program. I think that's how you say it.
I got Bracero.
Yeah, Bracero. They had an elite air squadron called the Aztec Eagles, which I found very interesting, who flew dozens of missions alongside the U.S. Army Air Force in the Philippines. They declared war on Germany, Italy, and Japan on May 22nd, 1942, and they seized the properties of German, Japanese, Italians, and Italian citizens. Mexico's role in World War II had a major impact on the country as the war led to an industrial revolution in the post-wars. Now, after I read this in the Aztec Eagle, so I did a little digging into them. The 201st Mexican Fighter Squadron, also known as the Aztec Eagles, was a group of Mexican pilots who fought alongside the U.S. during World War II. They were made up of about 300 Mexican soldiers and airmen, including 36 volunteer pilots and 264 ground personnel. They trained in Texas and Idaho and flew the P-47 Thunderbolt and P-51 Mustang fighter planes. They fought in the Pacific Theater in 1945, providing close air support to American ground units and dropping bombs on Japanese positions. The unit was the only military unit to fight outside the country's borders. They flew 795 combat sorties and lost 7 pilots. And the sad part is, once again, they experienced discrimination during training in the United States, just like the African American soldiers that we talked about earlier, with some Americans doubting their abilities, once again. So they had to go through that. I also looked into the Bracero program, which was a series of agreements between the United States and Mexico that allowed Mexican citizens to work in the United States on short-term contracts from 1942 to 1964.
Yeah.
So they played a surprise how much.
Yeah, and I feel like we never learn about other countries in World War II, which sounds like it's a world war, but it only ever seems like in school you learn about, the U.S., England, and Russia, like the big 3, and obviously like sometimes you learn about like in Africa in Northern Africa and like the Pacific theater, but like you forget, like I didn't know at all what Mexico was doing in World War II. So I was like, oh, okay, interesting. They were on our side, which explains why Bruce was able to go over there probably so easily.
It kind of talked about their planes had a little decoration like the Aztec Eagles for the Aztec culture they had black tips on the end of their wings. So these Eagles did. So I tried to try to find some of the planes to see if they had little black tips painted on the wings of the plane, but I didn't see that. So another little cultural.
That's cool. That's really cool. If only we learned about some of these other stories, right?
That was really neat. Yeah.
So we're going to finish today with the last letter that Bruce wrote to his family in 1942 on December 30th. So in his own words.
Wednesday. Dear Mother and Dad, I received the ledger the other day, and there was my letter to you. Pretty good putting it right on the front page. I didn't even sound so bad in print. Well, Friday will be another brand new year. Little did I think I'd be starting a year in the Air Corps, but here I am. Probably this new year will mean more worry for you, but it isn't such a bad situation. This Army hasn't harmed me in the least. I'm healthier than I've ever been. I'm doing something I like to do, and I'm serving my country. In itself, a mighty nice feeling. Also, I still love home as vibrantly as I ever did, and each day that goes by makes me love my mom and pop more. I wrote Bern a long discourse on my flying tonight, and he'll probably read it to you. In another 4 weeks, I'll know a lot more about my future. It's then I'll be assigned to duty. Might be I'd have to postpone my trip home a few weeks because we don't get over 4 days to report to our new station. But if you should get a wire saying ship me $100, it would be for plane fare. After that, I can repay you in 1 month because I'll be making around $250 a month. That's with flight pay. I received another picture from Columbia Studios today. Glenn Ford. As soon as I get a chance, I'll mail it to you. Glenn Ford is from Johannesburg, Africa, and he's going to join the Marines after this picture with his Edward G. Robinson and try to get shipped there. His family is still in Africa. This explains our proposed meeting there. Well, as fate will have it, he'll probably get rejected, and I'll be the instructor over here for the duration. When you see the picture, you'll see another gruesome picture of me. I'll have some good pictures taken in my officer's uniform as soon as I get it. Good night, God bless, and keep you, your loving son, J. Bruce.
Doesn't this seem like Grandpa and Glenn Ford really made a connection when you saw them in Hollywood? More than just taking a picture together, they were going to meet up in Africa.
Well, he said, yeah. And then there's this. I received another picture from Columbia Studios today. Was that they just sent it out, or was that something
must
Glenn
have been-
Ford sent him?
Maybe that must have been the publicity photos, I think,
that's probably
that he took before with him. So I did look this up. Glenn Ford did enlist in the Marines right around the time of this letter, actually. So maybe that was becoming news, right, as Bruce was writing. It's like he had the inside scoop. Because Glenn Ford told him, his buddy
told
Bruce.
him what he was going to do.
Yeah, but Glenn Ford never left the U.S. and never saw combat duty, so he did not go over to Africa. And Wikipedia says Glenn Ford was Canadian, so I don't know. Maybe he still had family in Africa. I don't know, but anyway.
I wonder his age. I wonder in comparison to Dad.
Oh, I don't know.
To look that up.
That's a good question. Should look
Yeah.
that up. I just want to say I did watch Destroyer on YouTube the other day because you told me I had to hear Edward G. Robinson's voice. And you are correct. I had heard it many times. I just hadn't put the face with the voice before. And yes, I've heard people mimic it or like copy it many times. Glenn Ford, very charming, very handsome in this movie. Can definitely see why he was like the heartthrob of 1943. And I watched clips from Reveille with Beverly. Remember we could not pronounce it?
Reveille.
Reveille with
And
Beverly.
Ann Miller is an amazing tap dancer. You can find clips from the movie on YouTube. You can't. I couldn't watch the whole thing. I could have watched Destroyer all the way through. But yeah, Ann Miller is amazing. There's a scene where she's like tap dancing through fire on the stage.
I think I've seen that
it
one,
makes
too.
this giant
Yeah.
V in fire. I don't know. It was fun to finally be able to see some of the movies and things that that Grandpa is referencing. I've tried to watch Take a Letter, Darling, and something with Joe with a big mouth.
Crawford?
Joey Brown.
Joey Brown,
Oh, Joey
yes.
Brown.
So finally, I got to see it. And now even more now I know Glenn Ford and Grandpa were buddies.
Well, according to Google, he was born May 1st, 1916.
Okay.
Dad was born May 2nd, 1915.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
a year apart.
So, yeah, they were about the same age. All right, interesting. All right. Well, I definitely enjoyed, sort of, Destroyer. It was definitely a movie from the 40s. It's slow.
down the torpedo, see?
That was a pretty good one, Mitch. That was good.
No, it isn't. Everybody does.
I mean, it
Everybody
starts,
does have wine.
it starts with the swirling newspaper, with like
Oh,
the
yeah, one of the-
headline.
oh,
and
yeah,
I thought that, so that's always
That's
mocked
kind of
a lot
yes,
in a
that's
lot of
used
things.
a lot.
So.
It was used a lot in the back.
Yeah.
back
So
in the
anyway,
day.
I was like, oh, this is an old movie. This is a good one. All right. Well, this letter that Aunt Lori just read appeared in the ledger on. It's the one he's sorry, I have to go back because this is very meta here. This letter that he's referencing that he read in the ledger was actually one that he wrote on December 15th, and us three read that one at the top of this episode. Does that
okay.
make sense? So it's
Yeah,
the one where he's
sure.
writing about all the Christmas presents he received. We only read a little piece of it. The ledger, or Frank and Lotta, edit out the part of all the Christmas gifts for the ledger. But that letter is there. So you can read the ledger article that has Bruce's letter in it in our primary sources that Dale put together on the website. But you can also read the original letter that Bruce wrote and the letter he wrote about the letter, also there. It's very confusing. I had to slow down for a minute.
So how
and
many
figure
of
this
his
out.
letters were published in the ledger? I know the one of the D-Day account was one.
Probably.
That
We haven't gotten to that one yet.
I
so
think
far,
he had
just,
around 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure he had 3. Yeah,
And
the-
other people were doing
right,
this too.
he had the D-Day one, and then
Yes.
this one. It seems like I remember seeing one more.
Yeah.
Short
Other people were definitely writing in different accounts of the war. Like we had
Right.
Klein Hexel. We read that in an early episode, who was captain of the first African American
Yep.
squadron. So yeah, periodically the soldiers would write in, or their family would submit it or something. So
He had boy, or what was it called? Had little headlines. Our boys in the war or something. They
Yeah.
had little anecdotal paragraphs about
yeah, they'd have
different
those, and then
stories.
every
Yeah.
so often they'd have a longer
Yeah.
letter about an experience. So Bruce's is in there, the end of the year, 1942. So that's a wrap for 1942. That was the last letter that he wrote that particular year, and that ends what I like to call season 1 of this podcast. And I say that because when we go on to 1943, there'll be a new set of primary sources on the website. You have to click on 1943 now. You get to see more of our podcasts coming up. We're going to come back. In 1943 is a big year for Bruce. There's more letters, of course, and he takes on more responsibility in the Air Corps. He meets his future wife, kind of a big deal, 1943, and he goes overseas.
Yeah,
He goes to England.
spoiler alert, he doesn't become an instructor.
Yeah, spoiler alert. And we're going to live it vicariously through his letters, I like to say, right? We get to experience it the best we can. So thank you for listening to Letters Home. We hope you continue to listen as we go through Bruce's story. You can listen to Letters Home on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Lowell Historical Museum website and YouTube channel. New episodes drop every Thursday. The Lowell Historical Museum has digitized versions of Bruce's letters so you can read them in full, along with primary sources for most of the people, places, and events we've talked about here today, plus more. You can also follow the Lowell Historical Museum on Facebook and the Letters Home podcast on Instagram at Letters Home Lowell. Thank you to Roger McNaughton for our podcast music and to WRWW 92.3 FM for letting us record in their studio at Lowell High School every week. Tune in our stream, WRWW at lowellradio.org. See you next time in 1943.